So this time, we don't see the egg shape entirely because you could almost fit a perfect circle in there, but it is still an egg shape. So that's going to be the center line from the front. And then it does something a little bit like that. And there's that kind of side, temporal side thing. So very simple. Let's just start with the sphere. That's more of an egg, actually. And it's okay to paint very small if you want. Just big enough for you to be able to see the forms. Okay, so there seems to be light coming in from the right side pretty strongly. So I'm going to just lay that in. I could be using an airbrush, but right now I'm just using a soft brown brush. And there's also light coming from this side. Lower the opacity, merge it down. It has the illusion of a three-dimensional spherical shape, and that's what we want. I'm going to grab that airbrush and start kind of blending in a little bit by just selecting and then moving throughout the piece, or the shape, form, volume, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I'm going to add a bit of darkness here, just so that the core shadow is a little bit more obvious, and a bit of a gradation from the bottom to the top. Kind of highlight there. Okay, the next thing will be the horseshoe. So let's take a look at the reference. There's a center line here, and it has a bit of a curvature to it. But if we simplify it to be just that, let's go ahead and just scribble that in here so it's easy to see. You're left with something like that. Three-dimensional, very simplified shape that will make complex later. It's a little bit too short. All right, that's the loose wireframe form of it. And if we just take this same core shadow up here on the sphere part and then bring it down like that, the values. I'm just making some marks, holding Alt for the color picker, and then moving my way through. Now we're not seeing too much of the bottom side in the reference, but we're just going to put in a bottom anyway. Okay, let's grab that airbrush and then make it a little bit cleaner. Okay, so as a reiteration, if we have the egg shape, the magnet horseshoe shape, the next thing we're going to add is the brow ridge. So just a line across the forehead like this, and just a nice little shelf like that. So I'm showing it at this angle so we understand the form of it, because in this angle, it's kind of hard to tell. So it's going to make a line like this. And I'm keeping on the orientation of the sphere so that it maintains the perspective or the volume and form of the shape. And we're going to draw the roof going up like that. And there you go. So I'm just going to treat it like it's just a regular shape, and then we'll carve into it what's actually happening. So it is kind of a cheese wedge thing going on. Cool. Before I actually start figuring out those actual shapes in here, I'm going to put in the nose shape first. So again, if we take that upside down magnet thing and then put it right in there. It's way too big for this, but it sits right underneath that roof. And the shape will be approximately something like that. And let's get some light on this side. And from here, I'm going to lay in just circles for the eye sockets because that's easy to put in. I'll approximately look at the shape of what it actually is. But just imagine you're painting sunglasses. And from here, I will start editing the brow ridge. While that roof shape or that cheese wedge isn't entirely accurate in terms of, hey, what's actually there, I'm using that as just a starting point so that we start to have a mental library of what the basic idea might be as a starting point to render on top of. Then you can kind of mold and sculpt using your paint accordingly. I'm just going to leave this dark. And then we're going to add that cheekbone shape. So it's kind of like rhomboid forward slant like this. And we take that and you put it right in like that. I'm just going to sketch that in approximately. And if it helps to draw these basic shapes on the reference, go for it. And I'm just going to erase that middle part and put some light on this side and then shadow on that side. It's like a cube. Obviously not the same actual shape as this, but that's what we're going to edit afterwards in a moment. So shadow side, and then we don't see the light side the same, but we're going to carve into it and then just lop off that whole part of that shape. And you can kind of take that and work your way upward. And just to kind of bring to your attention, if this doesn't make sense completely right away, that's perfectly fine. It's still taking me a very long time to really understand the skull fully, but I know it just enough to be able to paint believably regarding heads and portraits. So this is more of like a sampler that you can kind of study and practice. But the real deal will take a lot of time, a lot of iteration. to really understand it. Okay, just going to grab that airbrush to make things a little bit smoother everywhere else. And I am still ping-ponging my eyes back and forth, seeing how the shapes are changing based off of what we started with. Okay, remember that this is going to be coming out forward, the barrel of the mouth. So I'm just going to put these two lines here for the teeth to start with. And if that's the center line sloped forward, we're going to just put in some placeholder teeth shapes. And get those highlights in real quick. And I'm really big on indication by just putting in loose strokes like that to kind of imply the volume. When you zoom in, obviously it's just a couple brush strokes. So let's keep that in mind. And here I'm just going to be looking at the reference back and forth and then painting accordingly. And sometimes, you know, I'll change up the approach. So the way we're doing it here is I'm breaking down the forms so it's easy to understand. But also I like to look for shapes. Like if this is a very easy to look at shape, it's like this kind of like little fireball or like a dinosaur footprint. I can kind of replicate that here pretty easily. So when I go over here, I can take that shape and use it for a guide for the highlight. And just fill it right in. And then erase out what doesn't need to be there. All right, so now we have two very basic skulls based on the forms that we learned today. So just as a quick review, just to really repeat and drive it home. Start with the sphere. It's an egg-shaped sphere, so it's not quite a perfect sphere. Then we have the magnet shape, or a U shape. All right, and that just sits right into that, right? And we're not drawing this angle, we're just drawing something else. And from there, I like to start with the brow ridge, kind of sneak that in there like that. right? So it looks like a little shelf. And then we have the nasal cavity shape, which is like a bell shape or another U shape. And it kind of sits right in there. I always draw it way too big. Right. And then the cheekbone is complex. I like to kind of either do what I did earlier with the rectangular wedge shape and just sneak that in like that. It's going to go wider than the actual jaw. Or I'll actually just draw in a shape like that. And what I mean is I'll kind of, since I've practiced the cheekbone, I kind of have a feel for what it should look like. And it's going to be something like that. It was actually really difficult to try to come up with a simplification of the cheekbone, but I think for now, this chocolate bar thing is a fine placeholder. You can kind of connect that up like that for the eye socket. And then you have the protrusion of the teeth coming forward like that. And then backward again, and then forward again for the chin. And I made the cranium way too big. That's fine. This is just the practice. I'm gonna shave off that side of the cheekbone, lay in some values real quick. And what do you know? It'll look like a human skull. Right. Cool. So I would say practice that over and over again. Just make your own shorthand or shortcuts of other shapes that you might see in there that are easier for you. Or if this works for you just fine, then go with that. I'll do a couple more. This time without the wireframe stuff. Very loose and indicative version here.